Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You're going to want to stay tuned because you watch the show all the time. And you know we bring in leading experts in their particular field, in their particular space on the show all the time. And when I had a chance to book Dr. Ginette Collazo on the show, I took it. I mean, I'm very excited. She's a worldwide leading expert in something we talk about all the time, which is really maximizing your productivity, increasing human reliability, and optimizing your company. And she has a super cool thing that she offers called the Nano Academy. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But before we do, I wanted to invite Dr. Ginette Collazo. I'm going to call her Ginette on the show today. She's the president of course, Human Error Solutions. And they have a very specific niche that they work within, and they're just knocking the cover off the ball. Ginette, welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Dr. Collazo, it's an honor to have you on the show. You do such great work. I have so many questions about it. People know we love talking about maximizing productivity, but in your case at Human Error Solutions, you have a very specific niche that you work with that everybody in that niche knows you and they reach out for help. Let's talk about it. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about Human Error Solutions, and then we're going to get into it.
Sure. Human Error Solutions is a boutique type consulting firm. And what we do is that we help organizations manage human performance in a way that there's more productivity, that there are, is flawless execution, and that there are no delays or, defects in the process.
Yeah, I love it so much. And you've built an incredible consulting business specializing in a certain vertical, a certain group of companies or types of companies that really need to maximize their productivity. And more importantly than that, Ginette, they need to really increase the way in which the people work with the product, because in the very small margins, if they make mistakes, they've got very big problems. And that's one of the things that you help them with. What's the space that you specialize in? And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes, our firm works with all types of industries. Wherever you have a human and there is a process, it will apply. So in reality, we work with all different types of industries, but there is one in particular, which is it's FDA regulated or GMP regulated, because FDA is just for the United States. There are other regulators around the world. They do have a particular requirement, and is that anytime a person deviates from a procedure or deviates from the rules and what needed to happen, we need to do an investigation, because if people make mistakes in the rules that were written for that particular product, most likely you are going to be questioning the quality of the product. So if a person deviates from a procedure, then we need to do an investigation and identify the root causes. So that's basically what we do. It's a requirement from regulators, and it's very specific, because you have to not only identify the error, but develop corrective actions, preventive actions, measure the effectiveness, and demonstrate that the organization is doing everything that it can to avoid mistakes, and of course questioning the quality of the batch.
Yeah, Ginette, it makes all the sense in the world. I want to talk generally just for a moment, because I speak to so many entrepreneurs, so many startup founders, and when I start getting into their procedures and their policies, sometimes you get a blank look like, what do you mean policies and procedures? I'm a tech guy. I don't need policies and procedures. But nothing could be further from the truth, of course. How important for companies of all types of companies, whether they're a startup company all the way to Fortune 100 companies, are the policies and procedures for people to follow to make sure that they're operating in the most productive way possible?
Well, policies and procedures are very important, specifically because you have a structure, you have an order on how to do things. People know when is it that they can make decisions, when they can't make decisions. You have instructions specifically so everybody speaks the same language and performs in the same way. So, policies and procedures establish the standard, the rule, and allows for people to all work in the same way, so you get consistency of results.
Yeah, I like the consistency of results. It's very important. Constant and never-ending improvement. CANI, of course, was originally coined by, our friend, Tony Robbins back in the day. And of course, we talk about optimizing a company, and you're a great sort of thought leader on optimization. So let's talk about that a little bit. For someone that's not in the pharmaceutical or health industry, what can you share with them about some key points about how to think about optimizing their company in the best way?
Yes, absolutely. In terms of optimizing the company and the process, what you want to do is make sure that the process fits the human and not that the human fits the process. We cannot change human condition, but we can change the conditions in which humans work. And that's what you want to do. You want to simplify things so you don't have opportunities for mistake. But there are moments in which you have to complicate things so people don't make mistakes. Think about your computer when you're going to delete your hard drive. It asks you a couple of times, are you sure you want to erase your hard drive? And then you say yes, and then it gives you another prompt. So sometimes you do have to put barriers of defense. So that's why I always tell my clients that even though implementing some of these strategies might result in reduction of cycle time, of reduction of times and all of that, that could be the byproduct, but that doesn't mean that that everything needs to be simplified. Sometimes we do have to put barriers of defense and detection mechanisms to avoid mistakes from occurring.
Yeah, that makes sense, Ginette. The reduction of cycle time is important, of course, but not at the expense of increasing human reliability. And that's sort of your sweet spot. Now, let's talk more specifically about the pharmaceutical and the healthcare industry. I'm thinking about the industry. I'm thinking about what they have going on in the giant factories, what's going on at the C-level suite throughout the organization. And I would think that one small minor error in that particular space could cause a huge problem. And, we hate to think about the types of problems ultimately that a small error could make in a pharmaceutical or healthcare industry. But let's talk about the types of companies in that industry that reach out to you, Ginette, and what's that first conversation sound like? They've heard about you. They know what you do. You have a great reputation in the field. When they reach out to you, Ginette, what's that first conversation sound like?
Well, most of the times, companies call me because they don't know what else to do when it comes to human performance. We have a lot of experts in the industry. You have, for example, industrial engineers are very good explaining equipment behavior. You have process engineers that are very good explaining the process behavior. You have chemical engineers that can explain product behavior. But when it comes to humans, which is the equipment that is the most complex in existence, who explains human behavior? And that's why they get stuck, because it's like, we already did retraining, which is most of the times what they do. But in reality, training is not going to be your solution if your problem is not a lack of knowledge, skill, or abilities. So if the person has the knowledge, has the skill, or has the ability, training is not going to help you. And then it becomes a waste, because then you have to stop production to train everybody. And that's really, and not only that, when you get trained on something that it's kind of insulting to a degree. People get very they're not motivated. It doesn't feel right, because you're teaching me to do something that I do know how to do. That I don't have the time, or the colors don't make sense, or where I have my controls are all over the place. So those things are more into the work environment and not necessarily the person. But it's sometimes very difficult for highly scientific minds to understand this other portion, which is the science of human behavior. And that's what we do. And that's why it's so important that we have this practice, because it's kind of the missing link. In these industries, you have a lot of experts. But when it comes to human error, not necessarily. Now, one possible example of when something very small occurs. For example, I have a drug that I'm manufacturing, and while I'm doing the manufacturing, I have to be very careful about the temperature, the speed of the mixer, all of these things. The operator basically documents the results of those tests that happen in that process. Now, it could happen that the operator forgets to document something. Now, the problem here is that if you don't have a historian in the system, then that means that that piece of information is non-recoverable. So it's possible that even though the product is perfectly fine, you cannot give release to that batch because there is no way to defend the quality of the product without that number. So just a small typo, if I cannot recover the data, could make a difference between releasing a batch or not. And we're talking about, most of the times we're talking about medically necessary products and biological products that don't have a lot of shelf life. So that creates a problem, and that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, it makes sense, Ginette. We're talking about products that can help save lives and help cure things and can help people move forward in their lives by helping their health conditions. And of course, if there's a human error and they can't get that product out in a timely fashion, especially since they have a shelf life that is not as long as other products, that can really change the lives of people in a negative way. And not to mention the financial impact to the companies. And these companies, if they have a human error and they don't bring you on to help with the human error solutions, I'll call it, their margins get impacted a great deal because they could decrease their margins dramatically because some batches might not have the right stamp, the right background, the right follow-up. You'll explain it a little bit better, but the right sort of process necessary to be able to prove that particular batch is the right batch and ready for the market. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And not only that, but companies, and this could happen for all types of companies, right? We're talking about pharma and drug manufacturing because we chose that example. But for example, companies, they compete for volume. Right? For example, if I have a manufacturing facility and I have extra capacity and there is a product that is being launched, I want to have that product in my facility because it guarantees volume and it guarantees the jobs for everybody and so on. Now, how is it that companies decide which one is going to be assigned the product? Well, you have to demonstrate that you're good. You have to demonstrate that you are lean, that you are productive, that it's going to make sense from a financial standpoint, and that they can trust the organization. If you have too many errors, then that's not going to be one of the things that, you might get stuck in a situation where you have another company from the same company, another side from the same company. We're not even talking about competing with external clients. We're talking about competing within the same company for volumes. Then you might get into a situation. That's why human reliability is very important. Again, not only for quality and what we are talking about, but we have to also talk about safety and we have to talk about the business. When it comes to safety, you want to make sure that people don't make mistakes that could create a catastrophe or a situation that's that could be very serious. So you do want to manage all of those things as well. So we're talking about everything. Humans are part of everything. And I know that there is a lot of technology and artificial intelligence, but it doesn't matter what we do. People are going to be there one way or the other.
Yeah. And of course, with AI, it really depends on what's fed into it from the human. So the human capital has to make sure that their productivity is at the highest level, but that their reliability is also at the highest level as well. I want to talk to you, of course, about the Nano Academy. It's super cool what you've done and put together. But before we do, you work with some very, very large companies. And for the people watching the show, maybe they haven't had the opportunity. Maybe they're a startup. Maybe they're a younger entrepreneur that hasn't worked with the big multinational companies. What's it like working with a big company, Ginette? How is I'll call it the politics of working with these big companies? How do you get yourself into the company and work with the right people within the company so that your human error solutions can make the biggest impact?
Well, this is the interesting part of my practice. They call me.
Exactly.
They call me. It's of course you have to publish the problem, and basically what I'm saying is I write, I do training and webinars, and the information is out there mostly because of it's companies talk to each other and they, I get a recommendation from one or the other. But when it comes to these large corporations, yes, you have to get the buy-in from very high levels. And in order to do that, you have to show the what you do with numbers. It's the language of business. You have to explain in numbers how is it that this works and how is it that you will see results so top management can understand that, because they don't need to know all the details if we are going to revise a procedure or not. They just need to know that we are going to implement all the techniques that we can to make sure that we don't make mistakes, and that in that sense, then the whole organization, gets the rewards. So working with large companies, well, first of all, you would have to make sure that you can travel the world. Right? Because companies are all over the world, and even some people might think, well, why were you in South Korea? You don't, the FDA is not in South Korea. Well, it all depends, because if South Korea manufactures drugs that are going to be sold in the United States, then they do have to be part of it. So that's one thing. But not only that, I've worked with European companies that don't sell product to us in the United States, but still have the same problems. And they have their own FDA, for example, European GMPs, the Canadian healthcare, health agency, all of those are basically the same thing. They speak the same language.
Yeah, and of course, you put a lot of frequent flyer miles out there, Ginette. Of course, you're known for flying all over the world to help your clients. Also, you're very prolific in your writing, your seminars. People know who you are in the space. You're out there. You're a go-to expert. And all of that prolific writing and videos and information that you put out into the world has led you to this Nano Academy. And I love that so much. Let's give us a high level of what the Nano Academy is. And I have a few questions about that as well.
Well, the Nano Academy is a way to provide knowledge in small chunks to organizations. For example, when we do a training on human error, there is a methodology associated to that. So when we do training, at least you need 2 days of training. If we do a full program, sometimes it's a full week. But when you do the Nano Academy, we focus specifically in what you need. We do our 2-hour sessions, and then that way we can do it in chunks. Now, the other thing about the Nano Academy is that we are having a very different type of generation today in the industry, and they cannot manage a 2-day course. I mean, they could, but it's not the best approach. So they like to learn in smallest chunks of information. So that fits with the structure. So the idea is that you get a sense, that you get a feel of the content, and then if you are interested and you want to learn more, then now you have the information to say, well, this is something that I want to learn more. I don't want companies to pay a 2-day training if after 2 days they say, you know what, this is not what we needed. And I'm very conscious about that, because I work in the industry myself. I used to hire people to do what I do. Yes, sometimes it was like, you know what, yeah, we spent 2 days and this was not what we were looking for. It's very interesting and it's entertaining, but it's not entertainment. And that's why we needed to move towards something more practical. And that's what we finally did.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting, very specific. And you mentioned something that's really important, is that you want to take care of your clients. You've put something together off of all the years of experience that you have, knowing what they need. And you mentioned something very interesting, Ginette. I'd like to further explore that just for a moment, where the people today maybe are a little different than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago, because you mentioned they want to capture bite-sized chunks or have smaller windows of knowledge opportunity. Let's explore that a little bit, because I find that very fascinating.
Well, it's just about the generations. We most of right now we are living in a multi-generational environment. We have baby boomers, we have Generation X, we have millennials, and we have Cs. And yes, the baby boomers and Xers are very good with they're very open to knowledge and so on. But these other generations, they want something practical, something that I can use immediately. I don't care about the theory so much. What I want to do is just give me a solution, something that works. And that's what makes human error solutions different, because we have a quantitative type of process. It's a combined methodology. We use quantitative process and qualitative process to understand the experience, but also that I can give you a number and tell you, this is what's happening. This is your human error rate. This is what's creating your errors. If we fix this, you should expect this percent reduction. So it's all about understanding the needs of the client. And I want to clarify something. My client is the organization. It's not the employee or the boss. It's the organization. And I'm going to do everything that I can to help the organization, not one person in particular. And I'm very careful with my clients, because I want them to have results. I don't like to work with clients that don't want to do the work, because it's my name, it's my reputation, and we have a very, very good reputation. So when I see companies that they just want, and it happens everywhere, they want you to say something so they don't have to say it, from an external standpoint. Well, in those cases, those are the types of clients that I stay away from, because you have to be committed. You have to make sure that you're interested in making it good for the employees. And in those cases, we want to guarantee results. So that's why we are very careful. We are very selective. Yes, clients choose us. We also choose our clients.
Yeah, I love that. And you've built this business in a way that not only do the clients choose you, but you have a chance now to choose your clients and make sure they have the right mind frame to approach this incredible opportunity that you're offering their company to increase their productivity, max it out, I'll call it, but also, optimize and increase the reliability of their people. I want you to take me inside. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time, but I want you to take me inside, Ginette, the first phone call. You get a phone call from a company. You're probably asking certain types of questions to help you understand what their mindset is, where they're currently at, where they want to go, and why they even called you in the first place. So I want you to sort of take me inside that first phone call. It's always fun to do. And tell me some of the questions that you might ask this person who called you to sort of help you understand how human error solutions can help them in their company and their organization.
Yes, absolutely. When clients call me, this is the process that usually occurs in that conversation. They let me know that they have too many errors, and that they want to do something about it. One of the questions that I ask is, how do you know you have too many errors, right? That means that you might have a metric. And if you have a metric, I need to know the formula, and I need to know how you're measuring it. And if you have different categories of type of errors, or just count errors, period. Because I do have clients that say, well, we have this many errors, but this many are related to procedures, and not everybody has that. So I do ask, how do you measure it? And if you measure it, what's the main thing that you have seen, and what have you done so far to see if there is a fit, right? Because sometimes I have clients that or possible clients that when I look at the data and when I look at what they're doing, it's my next recommendation is automation. And it's like, I can't help you anymore. Your human error rate is very, very low. I know you want to be perfect. I think we all strive for that. But in your case, if you want to improve this, then I strongly recommend a vision system or an electronic batch record or something that automates the process, meaning that if you want zero errors, you do have to eliminate human interaction. Because human error is going to happen. So that needs to be clarified. That expectation needs to be clarified. We cannot avoid errors from happening, but we can control the magnitude of the consequences. And yes, there are things that we can prevent, but if we can prevent them, then we want to detect it while we still have a good error recovery rate. Because if we are not going to be able to recover, then why would you want to detect it? Well, of course, you want to detect it so you can, throw away what doesn't work or what's, bad if it's bad product. But what I'm trying to say is that you do want to understand where are they and if their expectations are realistic. Now, when we have these conversations, I do ask for, of course, we have to first of all sign a non-disclosure agreement so I can get the information, and we take it from there. I see some information. Sometimes I do have to go on site and do an observation of what's happening. Most of the trainings that we do are on site, and it's very good because that way we can, if somebody's explaining something to me, they tell me, let's take a look at the equipment. I want to show you what I mean. And those things help. But most of the times what we do is we talk about the data and the major contributors that they perceive, because that's something that when we take a look at the process, we might say, yeah, that's what you see, but you're not looking at what you see is the symptom. It's not the problem.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes the perception is not the reality. And it takes someone with your type of expertise, background, and experience to take a look at that and sort of be a mirror to the people at the organization to let them know where the reality really lies. And you do that so well. Now, before I let you go, I want to talk about entrepreneurship because, as you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs watching the show. They're listening to you. They know you're an expert in maximizing productivity, increasing human reliability. You've got the Nano Academy, of course, and maybe they're having a tough time, Ginette. Maybe they're freezing in the frame. Maybe their entrepreneur journey is hitting a wall. What types of maybe advice can you give, Ginette, to those entrepreneurs that are maybe hitting a tough time about keep on pushing and figuring out how to get on the right path?
You have to choose a lane and get specialized in something that it's going to be a need. I also encourage people to try to predict the future. There's no better predictor for the future than the past. So if you study what has happened in the industry before and where is it that we're going, you can actually predict what is it that they're going to need. And then you can start putting that together before it happens. And that's one thing that happened to me. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pay attention to you immediately. That means that you are one step ahead. Another thing that is very important is that you start, writing, that you start, publishing what you know and creating that, that curiosity for the client. And that's mostly what I've done. Now, remember that in my case, this is something very specific to my profession. So of course, it's not like I have a startup of a software or something like that or a product. It's more, our product is basically the methodology. But when it comes to developing your practice and your, and putting yourself out there, you want to have a specialty that makes you different from the rest. I do have I do have people that compete, but none of them have my methodology. It's my methodology. So you want to create your own things also. So you don't need to compete with anybody.
I love it, Ginette. You mentioned to the younger entrepreneurs, look at the past and look at things that have happened, not only to you, but other businesses. Learn from other businesses, learn from their successes and failures, and try and put into place some of those learning experiences into your own company. Surround yourself with talented people, ask the right questions, of course, reach out to professionals like Dr. Ginette, as well as mentors to help you get through your patches during your entrepreneurial journey. And of course, one thing that Dr. Collazo mentions that I love so much is, specialize and focus in on that customer and think about what that customer wants and think about what their needs are. You use that word need, Ginette. That's so important. And I really appreciate you bringing that out during the conversation. I want to bring you back on the show. I want to talk more about increasing human reliability. And I think that's such an important concept, especially now with AI coming on tap and everybody thinks that, humans are going to be kicked to the wayside, which they're not going to be. Of course, they're going to be more important than ever. Yeah. And it's people like you that are leading that charge into the future as a zeitgeist in the space. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing with us what's happening at Human Error Solutions. And thanks so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I hope that we can have more discussions in the future. And I hope what we discussed today helps, the viewers when it comes to understanding that there is a lot more than what we look and see right in front of us. One thing, I do have a podcast. It's called The Power of Why. And the reason why I did that is because I've noticed that we are not asking questions. We're not analyzing situations. We're pretty much repeating what we hear, and we need to feed the critical thinking and that that the power of questioning things. If you don't question things, if I didn't question the situations around human error, I wouldn't be here.